Look out in the street there. You know what you don't see? My car, because I had to sell it to pay the lawyer I hired when I got busted for drunk driving. Know what else you don't see? My girlfriend, who decided that a guy with no car and no license and no money was no fun. And hey, you know what else you don't see? You don't see me leaving for work in the morning, because I missed so much time with court and everything that I got fired.
Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Rick Horrow Beyond the Scoreboard. Coming up on this week's show, Scott Hamilton gives us some perspective on Olympic ice and off. Brendan Kuznarek offering her normal opinions. We've got the top 15 to watch this week and other stuff coming up in just a minute. Sports Professor Rick Horrow, Beyond the Scoreboard, the serious show that really shouldn't take itself too seriously, but it covers the trillion-dollar business, marketing, endorsement, news angles of sports, more than what you'd ever read, what you'd ever look at when you want to have a serious conversation, when you want to impress somebody at the bar, when you want to get ahead in fantasy, when you want to look at trends. This is where it is. Hopefully we provide you an inside look. I've been in the business for 30 years or so, doing a sports law class after Harvard Law School, sports law, sports business, and did a lot of deals for the NFL, NBA, NHL, and otherwise have some perspective on how they're put together, what they mean to the fan, and what the future of the business is. Now it's time for the 15 to watch, the top marketing, business, legal, deal-making issues for the week. 15 to 1. Number 15. The San Diego Chargers, massively unsuccessful in terms of finding a new local stadium to play over the last year, leading them to once again contact the Rams regarding a potential move into the LA Memorial Coliseum. The team will not decide until after New Year whether or not to move to LA. Multiple options exist if the Chargers to leave San Diego. The NFL offered the team the opportunity to join the Rams in a new stadium in the LA suburb of Inglewood. The Chargers may want their own facility, floating the idea of playing at the Coliseum. The Rams are currently sharing the stadium with USC, which operates the facility through 2017 and 18 seasons. To play at the Coliseum, the Chargers would need the Coliseum Commission to change its lease terms with USC, since it allows only one NFL team to play there even temporarily. Here's my take. The era of NFL franchise musical chairs, almost over. Within 2 months, we should know the final resolution of the San Diego-Los Angeles Chargers and the Oakland-Las Vegas Raiders. Assuming financial plans are being finalized, alternatives are being meaningfully assessed, and deadlines being realistically created. Once this is done, international NFL development will take center stage again. That's number 15. 14. NBA Hall of Famer Shaquille O'Neal recently discussed his endorsement strategy, noting he needs to have a connection with a brand in order to endorse it. According to NBC, Shaq appeared on Late Night to speak with Seth Meyers about how he navigates potential sponsors. I always tell the story what Wheaties wanted me to be on the cover of the box of Wheaties, and it was like, I don't know what it tastes like, I can't do it. But if you call Frosted Flakes, me and Tony the Tiger will look good on the cover, recalled Shaq. The Big Aristotle currently has deals in place with Arizona Cream Soda, Icy Hot, Gold Bond, Buick, and Zales. O'Neal's strategic planning stems from lessons learned after he notoriously spent his first $1 million within 45 minutes of getting his first big check during his rookie year in the NBA. And here's my take. Shaq remains a very sophisticated and intelligent businessman. Look for him to follow Michael Jordan, Arnold Palmer, Muhammad Ali, and other sport icons in their strategies that transcended their games. Number 13. Europe watches more online sports content via mobile devices than those in the rest of the world, based on a report from Uyala. According to Broadband News TV, the third quarter 2016 Global Video Index highlights mobile viewing now constitutes over half of all video views globally. Consumers are watching more mid to long-form content on any device, regardless of a phone, tablet, or computer. A year ago, Ireland was the only market that saw the share of sports video views on mobile pass 50%. Now, 50% or more is the norm generally. The leading country in the category, Great Britain, where nearly 60% of all video streams come via mobile devices. The United States trails a few percentage points behind the British at 52%. while the global average has jumped all the way up to 49%. And here's my take. The trend will continue to be global, prolific, and consistent. Watch for the blurring of lines between TV, mobile, streaming, and all forms of content delivery from now on. Number 12. The Olympics historically always brought host cities to an unprecedented global spotlight before and during the Games. But South Korea hoping to use the upcoming Winter Olympics as a platform to boost overall tourism. According to the Korea Herald, the organizing committee placing heavy emphasis on highlighting year-round tourism in the rural province. The city of Gangwon in its province is known to attract tourists during the winter months for its skiing and high-end resorts. But now it wants to expand beyond that. The organizing committee vowed not to let any of the newly built venues go unused after 2018, which should also help boost visitors. The biggest challenge at the moment is how to promote the Games around the world because this is a small place. And senior IOC member Gunilla Lundberg said it's not Rio and it's not London, and here's my take. Meaningful expectations for Olympic legacy must translate into successes for Korea and the Olympic movement. And with questionable long-term benefits from Sochi and Rio, the spotlight shines brightly on Korea to put together an appropriate short-term and long-term plan. Number 11, FIFA President Gianni Infantino may not have a clear plan at the present, but he wants to bring significant change to the Club World Cup. According to Reuters, one of the leading ideas is to expand the tournament field to 32 teams from the current format of only 7. European teams have historically dominated this tournament, having not conceded a goal between them since Corinthians beat Chelsea 1-0 in the final of the 2012 tournament, the only time since 2006 that the tournament has produced a non-European winner. The tournament, held annually, largely lacked the prestige of the UEFA Champions League in Europe, and although it's hailed as the preeminent club tournament in South America, the world changed, and that's why we need to make the Club World Cup more interesting, he said. That's what we're trying to do, creating a tournament much more attractive and more quality among participants and among clubs. That'll attract more sponsors and television companies from around the world. And here's my take. Transparency also generates significant benefits both on and off the soccer pitch. International sports continue to take a hit. Ongoing IOC doping allegations, for example, the more reason why Gianni must be tough, ethical, and consistent. And that's number 11.
We'll get to the top 10 stories of the week in a bit, but first, I sat down with figure skating icon Scott Hamilton to discuss his battle with cancer and his subsequent fundraising efforts. Scott starts the interview by talking about the slow start to his Olympic career.
I went from being a lousy skater to being a skater that had some potential to then realizing that potential.
Over from 78 to 84, maybe. Is that right?
Yeah.
How's that happen?
You know, it's a.
I know it's a tribute to your mom, but how's it happen?
It happens knowing that, you know, you look back on it, 30-something years later, and you see God in all of it.
Yeah.
You see, this miracle happened, and it may not have presented itself as a miracle, but without that event happening, that event couldn't have happened, which made that event happening, which then allowed for the opportunity to go forward. And so it's all these little mini things that all create this great possibility. And then when you go through the process, it's not hitting a certain patch of ice, or it's not skating at a certain order, or not, there's all these things that could, be labeled as luck that have nothing to do with luck at all. They just have everything to do with provincial timing. It's providential timing of, okay, if I would have skated first after the warm-up in Sarajevo, I would be done, because I didn't land a single jump in my warm-up. I couldn't find myself because the adrenaline was pumping so hard that I was dizzy. I had no understanding of where I was in the air, and it was a mess. So I needed those two performances for me to go down and scream into a mirror every single word that could come into my mind to just process that adrenaline out. So when I took the ice, I was a little bit dizzy and tired from all that, just purging all this adrenaline. If I would have skated first after that warm-up, I would have been 8th in the short program, not even, the broken tie for first.
But a case of destiny or a higher authority or power are all critical, but that may be selling yourself a little too short. You're a tremendously dedicated athlete and a very good athlete, and your habits, but it's serious, right? I mean, it's a combination of being right place, right time, but it's also an unprecedented dedication to your craft to take advantage of that.
Well, you got to show up every day.
Yeah.
And a lot of, when I'm teaching a skater at the academy, a private lesson, and I look at them and they go, I just don't feel good today. I just don't. This is probably a big waste of time. I go, are you kidding? Yeah. This is the most important day to show up. Because you know how many kids that feel like you do today aren't coming? And that gives you that day extra of being on the ice, and that puts you a day ahead of them. So it's all these opportunities of, knowing that if you show up every single day and you're intentional and you give it every single thing you've got, you're going to continue to advance. And yeah, it's 2 steps up, 1 step back, 3 steps up, 2 steps back, 4 steps up, no steps back, and then it turns into this progression that allows you to be more in a position to endure very difficult situations successfully. And it's good in business, it's good in academics, it works in everything. If you show up every day, and that's it, just show up every day, you are now making something possible.
It's hard to believe, but it's 32 plus years?
Yeah, it's almost 33.
And so you've morphed into a cancer survivor, ambassador to hockey / skating, world-class entrepreneur, which you're in the middle of now, and you're going to be doing it, and kind of a hero of millions. I'll say that. How do you? Is it a life plan that caused you to reassess every 5 years where you'd be and see how successful you'd be? Was it a conscious effort to build off of 84? Here's where I want to be at a certain time. Is it a combination of a lot of different things? Is it certain values you ascribe to that cause you to be in a certain place? How do you get here?
How do you build a pyramid?
Yeah. Okay.
Like one brick at a time.
Yeah. Right.
So it turns into this thing where, when I turned pro, I won my 4 world championships, my 4 U.S. championships, and the gold medal, and went that 4 years undefeated as an amateur. So I'm living in a friend of mine's parents' basement, and I don't have 2 nickels rubbed together. Now what do? Well, I got to turn pro. And really the only right decision to make was to join Ice Capades. And when I met with the president of Ice Capades, a man I respect and I quote almost daily, he just looked at me and he goes, you know what? It's a good thing you won the Olympic gold medal because you're too short to be in the chorus line.
Oh, nice.
No, but it was like that. It's like, this is an all or nothing proposition.
Yeah.
And he goes, and not only that, he goes, I want you to understand that this is a leap of faith for us because every Olympic athlete we've ever brought in gets injured, misses shows, ends up partying on a Saturday night, doesn't want to come in on Sunday morning. There's all this, and, this is the history. This is all we know. So guess what? We've lumped you in. That's who we think you are. And I go, no. I'll never miss a show. I'll never miss a press opportunity. I'll be the model employee. But my only thing is, I'm not going to sign for 33 weeks, which is the normal duration of the year, the calendar year for an ice show like Ice Capades. I'll sign for 20 because I want to keep myself up and I want to pursue other opportunities, in those weeks I have off. Well, in those, I averaged 23 weeks, those 20-week years, because somebody would get injured, as you said.
Right.
Olympic, our stars get injured, and I'd go and I'd sub for them. Sometimes I'd show up on the day unannounced and say, surprise, here I am. So I became this model employee, and after 2 years, Ice Capades went through a sale, and the new owner didn't want to have anything to do with male stars. So I got let go. And, when you get let go or you get fired or you get downside, whatever the verbiage is, guess what? That's opportunity.
And you're a gold medalist, for God's sake, so how could they possibly let you go, right?
I'm a gold medalist, and there was no precedent, right? It was just, I'm making it up as I go along. And my heroes were not skaters. My heroes, I had role models, but my heroes were Bruce Springsteen. My heroes were Neil Diamond. My heroes were these guys that started with nothing and built these audiences. So I figured, how am I going to build an audience? How am I going to do that?
Yeah.
Well, there's two things that have to happen. One, I've got to make sure that I win over the entire audience. So I'd step on the ice at an ice show, and sure enough, all the women would be leaning forward in their seats with anticipation. Okay, I got them. I got them. That's they're done.
By the way, that, ladies and gentlemen, was an earlier Scott Hamilton with some hair, just so we understand.
No,
Okay?
and I'm not even saying that they're attractive. I'm just saying that they came because they wanted to see skating, and they're already a skating fan.
Clearly.
Okay, so there's a man usually sitting next to them, slouched in his seat, checking his watch with his arms across his chest, who has taken one for the team. This is date night, and my wife wanted to come to an ice skating show, and I can't wait for it to be over. All right, here's my mission, and I chose to accept it. I've got to win him over. If I can win over that guy that doesn't want to be there, that guy that'd rather be watching the football game, that guy that's mortified that he hopes nobody from his office sees him at an ice skating show with his wife,
right.
if I can get him on his feet, and that's the thing, that's the goal, get him on his feet, then I can skate for as long as I want. And now I go through an airport all these years later after I'm no longer skating, and a gentleman will come up and he'll say, I'm not a skating fan at all. I'm a football guy, a baseball guy, but my wife loves you. Can I introduce her? Can I introduce you to her? I go, of course. He goes, I'll go get her. Goes, gets his wife. He goes, honey, look who I found. And she'll look at me and she'll go, I have no idea. It's like fist pump central. It's like, okay, I was right. And, it's like I did the backflips and I did all these, I created routines that were really meant to be broad in their interest, things that had never been seen before, clever, funny. I wanted it to be an open invitation for people to kind of like what I do. But at the same time, it had to be difficult. It had to be innovative, and it had to be something that was totally 100% me, because Springsteen has nothing to do with Neil Diamond. Okay, Neil Diamond has nothing to do with Robert Plant. These are all the guys that I like the most. And when you look at the way these guys built their careers, it was one performance at a time. Yeah. Build a reputation. Build something that allows people to go, I heard about that. I want to go. How did Sonia Henney do it? She created this light that people were attracted to, and she became the biggest star in skating history. Well, I want to learn from that. I don't want to learn from the status quo of whatever that is. No, I want to learn from what's next. When I lost my mother to cancer, I became a fundraiser. That's logical. Yeah, right? Sure. The first place you can go is, I'm going to use my skating, I'm going to use whatever I can, my friends, I'm going to bring them all together, and we're going to raise money for cancer. So we did that. My first show I did as a non-amateur, I had this kind of Puritan kind of thing. It's like, okay, I'm not going to lose my amateur status by collecting money or signing a contract, because I think that's that's the wrong way to go. It's like, we're not going to do this until we get married, right? I wanted to make sure that everything was pure of mission and thought. So basically what I did was I did my last amateur show, and then I did a fundraising show for cancer in Denver. It was my first, I lived there, trained there. We did a big event there to raise money for cancer research. And I did it without being sanctioned. So I lost my amateur status, because you have to be sanctioned to do these shows, right? So I did it without a sanction, so now I'm no longer an amateur, but I didn't do it for money. I did it to raise money for cancer research, and then I signed my Ice Cup Heights contract the next morning. And I realized that the only person missing in my world, I had 3 angels, okay? I had my oncologist, angel number 1, my oncology nurse, my angel number 2, and my friends and family, angel number 3. But there wasn't a 4th angel. So we created one. 4th angel is someone who's been there, done that, survived, and is on the other side. And we created the 4th angel mentoring program, where we pair newly diagnosed patients with survivors. So you have someone that's been there, done that, can give you practical life advice, not medical advice, life advice, and also serves as a role model. Right when you feel like quitting, you pick up the phone, you're talking to somebody that's been exactly where you are, and they're on the other side now. And it gives you hope. and the information that no one else can give you. So all that and fund research. With the Cleveland Clinic, we created 54 unique research programs. Some of them have presented at ASH, which is the... so it's done really well, but at 16 years, I realized that I just felt compelled. It's like, they go, what do you want to do next? What's the next big idea? And I go, grow. Yeah. And when you're a part of an institution, it's like, well, we can't. And it's like, huh. So I went to talk to Toby Cosgrove, and I said, can I take the brand into the community and try to grow an independent foundation? He said, go for it. I was like, great. So now we're a 17-year-old startup. Yeah. And we're doing the shows that we've done in Cleveland all these years that have entertained, hundreds of thousands of people. And, now we're doing it. We had our first one last night in Nashville. And I did media every single day because you can't describe it. Right. You can't describe. I mean, you can say it's this and it's that. But until you see the live music component, knowing every song by these iconic artists with skating in front of it, at world-class skating, Olympic champion skating, you can't describe that. When people see it, they're like, whoa.
Scott Hamilton is credible, and the fact that he won the gold medal is really important, but the fact that he is one of the most charitable icons right now, teaching kids how to skate and also teaching people how to live, is incredible. Another incredible person, we'll shift it a little bit, Trenny Kuznarek, nightly out of CSN New England, mainly sometimes for NBC Sports, sometimes for everybody else, a woman of the world. How's that for an intro?
I like it. A Renaissance woman.
That's great. Capital R, capital W. Let's see if it's on the business cards. What do we want to talk about today first? Let's talk about how outrageous season ticket prices are, because my Cubs win a World Series every 108 years. Their increased season ticket price about 20%, 31% higher for the premium seats. They increased them for every seat, but they also increased it higher for the premium ones. But they do it everywhere. And, of course, the executives are saying, what do we want to do? We got to get a break. And my take is, everybody does it. Blue Jays did it. Everybody does. And, frankly, if you're going to want to watch that star reliever close, you got to find the dollars to pay somewhere else. And after 108 years, you ought to give them some slack.
Yeah, listen, I don't mind raising ticket prices. Every team raises ticket prices. You have to, right? I mean, in order to keep up with supply and demand and upgrades to the stadium and, like you said, increasing payroll. However, 31% for infield club box seats, 19.5% for the average season ticket. But the one that even gets me is 6% for upper deck prices. To me, what you do here is you price out the average normal American person. So if you're someone who doesn't live on the Gold Coast of Chicago, I'm not super familiar with Chicago neighborhoods, Lincoln Park, but I think those are two pretty nice places. Yeah. If you don't live there and you live maybe in Gurnee or one of the other smaller suburbs,
closer to Milwaukee.
Well, yeah, closer to the good land.
Right.
Maybe you want to bring your family of four to a Cubs game. Well, by the time you've paid, I'm going to guess if it's anything like Fenway Park, right, $50 for parking.
At least.
Right.
$12 beer.
$12 beer,
right,
and now your ticket prices are $20 to $30.
Right.
So let's just say they're $20, which isn't even that bad. For a family of four, that's $20. That's $80. That's a lot of money for an average middle-class family to go to a baseball game.
Now, we'll link it to the items later on in our conversation today, stadium building. But the one thing that Fenway and Wrigley have in common is the Red Sox guys and the Cubs guys decided to spend their own money and write their own checks for humongous renovations, which were $500 million. So if you don't charge all of this, where are you going to get the money?
Maybe your investments. Maybe you should invest better. No.
Wow. There you go. There's a good answer.
I mean, you do have to. I completely understand that you have to replenish that market, right? It's sort of like Dave Dombrowski trading away a bunch of players. You have to replenish your farm system. So the owners who have invested, they want to get something back for that investment. I don't have a problem getting some of it back via ticket prices and then maybe raising concessions and parking and all of the other things that go around it. But I think as a Cubs fan, you look at this, and again, I'm not talking about the, half in, half out. I live in Wrigleyville. I go to Cubs games on a Saturday afternoon because I don't mind paying $12 a beer because I would pay that anyway. And we get drunk and dressed up, and it's a party to go to a game. I think those fans don't even look at this and bat an eye. But I'm thinking about the other middle-class, hardcore baseball fans who feel like they're getting priced out of professional sports and who feel like I stuck with you through thick and thin. I came to this ballpark with my kids when you guys weren't even making the playoffs, when no one cared about you. And the only reason you were on TV is because you're the Chicago Cubs. And now you win one World Series, which is great. It's fantastic. But the way that, we're congratulated by it is, here's a 31% increase in ticket prices.
Yeah, well, but the bottom line, to be cruel about it, is that 670% above face value, according to StubHub, for the series and playoff games for the premium seats. So the market is clearly there. We know the market's there. Chicago, the market's there. The average price for 2016 tickets, according to StubHub, was 100% over market value. So we understand that it's higher. Also, we know that the Cubs Stadium, I remember reciting these attendance numbers when I was at Northwestern and decided that rather than going to classes, I go to games, 36,240. That was their capacity at the time. So there's not a whole lot of room to maneuver these people, just like Fenway. You got small facilities, you're landlocked. Where are you going to get the revenue from? And the other piece of this is, after 108 years, if they waited a couple more years, they probably couldn't get away with a ticket increase, and that's the bottom line. When can you do it? Toronto increased their ticket prices 24%. They did okay. They didn't, I guess they did sniff the World Series, but not sniffed it as much as Cleveland did.
Yeah, so. I go back to, I don't always like sticking it to your the 31% on the premium seats doesn't bother me as much because, again, there's a market for that. It's always sort of that 6% may not seem like a lot, but 6% for an average, upper deck, can't see much ticket. I feel like there's a way to sort of tax the rich and let the less fortunate.
Or I have a better
idea.
Games. Let's ask. Let's do it right now. Trenny Kuznirik is on record asking all of the players on the Cubs to take a 20% salary rollback across the board.
Well, no, that's not going to happen. I mean, I'm not silly enough to think that's going to happen.
Okay.
But I also feel like, man, if you're going to run a team, then manage your team. No, not man up. Manage your team to a point where when you have success, it's not as if they couldn't go out and get players last year at what they were charging for ticket prices. What they saw was a level of greed, saying we can make more. And I understand that. That's how rich people become rich. They see an opportunity and they seize it.
Rent Aroldis Chapman for 4 months before he goes back to the Yankees, right? So where are you going to get him from? We're never going to disagree on this one because we fundamentally understand that there needs to be some way for the next generation who otherwise couldn't afford it to actually go to the games, because if they're not, we're all in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. There has to be a way that the average person who, again, isn't pulling in a six-figure salary and shopping on Michigan Avenue can say going to a Cubs game is feasible for me and my family.
See, here's the bottom line. She says she doesn't know Chicago very well. She knows where to shop. She knows the Gold Coast. She knows where to live in Chicago. You're doing pretty good.
Okay? I probably wouldn't live in Gold Coast. I'm probably more of like a Lincoln Park kind of a guy.
You are. You're a Lincoln Park. Or maybe maybe Gurnee by
no,
Gurnee Mills.
No, definitely not Gurnee. No.
Yeah, she's been there. Been there, done that. All right, that's enough of that. We're going to go to probably a team that a lot of people are aspiring to these days. And when you consider where they used to be, it's unbelievable, which is the Golden State Warriors. They got a deal with Chase to name their new arena. They've got Steph Curry. It's an incredible deal, too, with Chase as well as others. Fresh off his 60-point performance, which was magnificent, Klay Thompson gets a multi-year shoe deal with Chinese brand Anta, which will be the biggest deal. He's now at $3 million. They're going to offer him $9 million, which is, I guess, $4.5 million a foot, if I can understand the math. And the bottom line of all of this is it is amazing, iconic brand, and they didn't even win the NBA championship last year. What's up with that?
I mean, I just think that they are a dynamic group of individuals. Yeah. Like, there's something that is magnetic about them. I think when people, I think it's skewed a little bit in the other direction last year when they saw the Golden State Warriors and Steph Curry get a little frustrated during that final series against LeBron, and there was a little There were some exchanges there, maybe some pouting on the sides of Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. But they still, in my estimation, from what I understand, they're sort of still this lovable group, right? Where LeBron James, for whatever reason, and partially I think because he's just been a star for so long, can't always shake the image of being like the bad guy in basketball, right? Not, he's the guy who said, I'm taking my talents to South Beach, and he's the one who cries and, whines every time he doesn't get a call, and people think he flops too much. And even if the Golden State Warriors do that, for whatever reason, people don't think it is as bad as LeBron James. And so the Golden State Warriors have become sort of this lovable global brand. And I think also the NBA has just done a really good job of global marketing with their teams, more so than any other sport.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and it's a sport that, unlike most other American, I use it sort of in air quotations, but American sports, is played in many, many other countries.
Yeah, and Joe Lacob, who is a Kleiner Perkins venture capital guy, owned, remember, 17% of the Celtics, so he cut his teeth knowing this. And he's a friend. He's a guy who's just so passionate about the game. He's got his kid in as assistant general manager, and he's running it. And by the way, you remember when he first bought that team, and he stood up at Oracle Arena, and everybody booed him. And it's like, oh, my God, this is going to be terrible. So the evolution has been really good. Now the Washington Post has a beat writer that's embedded and says we're going to have our advanced stories out of Oracle, and there are a lot of other people following suit. So Brad Stevens, Celtics, Pags, Wick, those guys, will they get there?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, the only way you get there is if you put together a team that is as good and as compelling as the Golden State Warriors.
And build on a tradition, by the way, which is better.
And build on the tradition that is better. Yeah. But that's hard to do. I mean, think of how long it took for the Golden State Warriors to build that team. It's you have to have some once-in-a-lifetime players and then build on that through free agency.
And they also sucked for so long, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Steph Curry, I mean, you could say Steph Curry single-handedly turned that franchise around. Now, I think it's be easier for the Celtics to do it because of their because of the tradition. Absolutely. Yeah. It's already a worldwide brand, so to speak. So I don't think you have to build on the brand, but you need to give people something to want to cling to that brand again.
I understand the competition committee, and this just in at the NBA, they've decided that they're going to, after the All-Star game, instigate a rule where you can play with two basketballs at the same time because Durant's not getting enough shots and there are enough players
there. Well, good.
There.
Maybe he'll come back to Boston.
Yeah.
Or I should say back. Maybe he'll choose it next time.
Maybe he stops in Washington and then goes to Boston. All right, next. Let's talk about stadiums. Let's talk about public funding. It's a big, interesting issue. The Oakland A's have been given a year-long deadline by Commissioner Manfred, and usually these kind of things happen at the head of a gun, and this is going to be that time where they're saying, let's get a deal done. San Jose's out because the Giants have the territory. Let's figure out how to do that. And at the same time, with the same coast, the Chargers are going either to L.A., staying in San Diego, probably not likely. The Raiders may be getting a new deal done in Oakland, but they've got to now compete with the A's, which is interesting. The Vegas team already has a hockey deal that they're trying to, Vegas NFL, trying to get out ahead. Conference musical chairs, city musical chairs, the whole idea of using public money for stadiums rearing its head. So what say you about that?
I'm so on the fence about this because having grown up in Milwaukee when there was the chance that the Bucks were not going to build, the Bradley Center is the oldest arena in the NBA, and that's also where my alma mater, Marquette University, plays their basketball games.
Didn't Dwayne Wade play for?
Dwayne Wade
weren't
played for
you the
Marquette.
second most famous? Oh, maybe.
He is the most famous Marquette grad.
Yeah.
Well,
Maybe.
is he? I mean, Al McGuire is pretty famous too.
Yeah,
so.
But he's no longer with us.
I know,
We're talking
he's
about
not.
currently.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Jay Crowder. Jimmy Butler. Jay Crowder and Jimmy Butler, all former Marquette basketball players.
Jimmy Butler's Marquette?
Yes.
I didn't realize that.
Pay
what
attention.
a great trad. Yeah, I definitely pay attention.
Pay attention, Rick. We're all good Jesuit kids.
So 16% of the Bulls roster is Marquette.
Yes.
Wow. Keep going. Got to interrupt. Keep going.
But anyway, so when I saw that there was a chance that Milwaukee was going to reject a tax proposal for a new arena, I was up in arms about it.
Yeah.
And I looked at it and said, listen, Milwaukee, you lose the Milwaukee Bucks,
right?
And you're Green Bay with a few more people.
Good point.
You know, and less of a fun sort of warm fuzzy sports story because then you've only got the Brewers.
Yeah.
And I also thought, not only that, but right now, because the Bradley Center is so out of date, there are so many concerts that don't come to Milwaukee, shows that don't make it through because there are acts that don't want to go there. And all of that contributes to the larger amount of money that is renovated in downtown. Because if you go down for a concert, you might go to a restaurant in that area, you will park in that area. Maybe afterwards you'll go to a bar in that area. Along with this new stadium or new arena, they're going to sort of build an entertainment complex. Yeah. So that's the one side of the fence that I'm on, that I don't hate the idea of public funding. And I even remember back in the day when they wanted to replace County Stadium with Miller Park, it was like 0.5%. It was like a 1 or 2 cent tax.
How'd you feel about that? Were
and
you
at
okay
the
with
time,
that?
I mean, at the time I wasn't, I'll be honest, at the time I wasn't, I don't think I understood taxation enough and understood like the larger ramifications of taxes and what drove people. Because I was a kid when that happened.
Right.
I mean, I was a teenager. So I was all for it because I was a huge baseball fan and I wanted to see a new stadium and I wanted an all-star game and thought it might make the Brewers better and a World Series contender, which obviously didn't happen. But the other side of it is I do understand that I can understand from an outsider's perspective when you look at it and say, why can't these billionaires just pay for this? There's all this money. And if you're taking money, you're building a stadium with those tax dollars. Does that mean that my infrastructure dollars aren't getting padded? Does that mean education, healthcare, all these other things? And I'll be honest, I still don't entirely understand sort of the line that's drawn between taxation for stadiums and arenas versus would that money then are we robbing Peter to pay Paul?
Yep.
I don't think that we are. But again, in a time we just came out of a very contentious election about, there's sort of this whole working class that feels left behind. I think if I'm a working class person, particularly in the middle of the country or in Oakland where they just had that terrible fire because housing costs are so high, that you look at this and say, well, wait a second, you're going to tax me to build a stadium that is owned by millionaires and billionaires, that is for a sport that is played by millionaires. And I'm living in an artist loft that is a fire trap. And again, whether or not that's how the finances are spread out, that's what the optics are.
And by the way, that's the way politicians live and die these days because the leadership on this issue is not as easy as it used to be because it's a little more complicated. So 30 seconds when you're bored about stadium finance, raise your hand and I'll stop. So in the 1960s, we had these round stadiums. Remember Cincinnati, Philadelphia, Riverfront, all of those. And they were built with property tax increases. So that's money that would have gone to schools and health care and police and fire, but they were treated as infrastructure. You build a park, you build a street, you build your stadium, and both teams played there, and they entered into tenant deals. But the problem is they're $30, $40 million stadiums, not $1 billion. So fast forward a few years later, very expensive. Teams are writing a check, but the public sector is a little more sophisticated because now the money's coming from the tourist industry and the development industry. So the dollars are coming from these real estate developments where the tax money that comes from the increased activity goes back to the facilities. At least that's what I did in the 9 million years that I was doing that stuff, because politicians don't want to increase property taxes away from schools to try to fund these deals. So that's where the deal is today. Okay? So that's part of it. Problem is, it's all perception. So in big cities with big owners, they're saying you got to do it yourself. Madison Square Garden, Fenway, Boston, all Boston's facilities, basically not a lot of public money. LA's, Chicago's, middle markets like Oklahoma City, like Milwaukee, they're using the tourist money because they need a kick. So I'm kind of on the fence. And that was my business for years. So when I see owners getting money where they probably shouldn't get it, I'm the first one to say, hey, that's not good because that makes it difficult for everybody else.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize it that way, too, and the fact that, once again, these big markets and these big cities, they're not having to kick in and take money out of their
look at Boston. Look at TD Water.
Right, out of the city's pockets to pay for it. But once again, it's the Kansas Cities, the St. Louis's, which is really just a small microcosm, I think, of everything else that's going on right now.
I feel better?
Yeah, I do.
All right, good.
Yeah.
So finally, here is Trenny Kuznarek around the world. So Oyala, who apparently is a company that is big in this deal, says that now mobile viewing of all kinds constitutes over half of all video views globally, meaning all content, meaning your commentary, meaning rights fees to games, meaning everything else. In Great Britain, it's about 60%. In a lot of other places, it's even more. And the trend is global, it's prolific, it's consistent. And so in the future, we all understand we're watching stuff on mobile devices and on iPads, but let's get used to even more and more and more of that. That's a big number.
Yeah, and I mean, as someone who works in television sports and who has made a living doing this, there's some, I could say with complete certainty, there is an anxiety among people, among journalists who work in this business, because you start to wonder, much like the newspaper business, is this beginning to die? Are we going to be able to be forward thinking enough to move our industry in that direction and still serve our consumer to where people feel like they no longer need us? Because I think now, because you can get so much of your news online via, websites, blogs, things like that, you'll repurpose, right? You'll pull a quote from a New York Times article, you'll read that or a section of it rather than paying to subscribe to the New York Times. I think there's a real fear that as people start to unplug, that they won't plug back in another way.
Yeah, but what about the fear from your perspective? So you're at the Patriots game last night, dirty little secret, well past your bedtime. So the idea of having news on demand is great, but you don't. So on the television side, you're not on until 8 hours later. How do you communicate relevant
right.
stuff? You change your life, basically. You change your journalistic life, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. And it becomes a point where, we always, I think sort of the tagline recently has been, it's better to be right than be first, because being first has become such a high priority. But I do see a lot of, as someone who is sort of in the middle, right? Like, I'm not a millennial. Yeah. But I also grew up.
I thought you.
No, I wish.
Okay.
No, actually, I don't wish. I don't wish I was, because I don't like selfies and stuff, and I don't feel obligated to do it.
We'll do it another day.
Yes.
This part. Okay.
But I'm also young enough that I came of age in high school and college with computers and with email, with some technology, where I sort of see an opportunity as well. I mean, I love interacting with people on social media platforms, and I think it's a great way to, let's say we can only do a 2-minute piece or a 3-minute piece on TV, but we can put a 7-minute piece online. So, but I just think it's finding sort of the right mix. And I say now, I can't imagine TV ever disappearing completely, but I'm sure it can. I personally don't. I still read regular books. I don't have I don't like ebooks. I still have I like an actual paper book. I still watch most of my television, and most of my viewing habits for longer form pieces are still on actual television.
So the word dinosaur might not be appropriate. You're not out of touch. You're not a dinosaur.
I'm not a dinosaur.
No, but
what's like in the middle of like a woolly mammoth?
Pterodactyl. No,
that's a little far away.
A little far away.
I'm going to go woolly mammoth.
Woolly mammoth is pretty good.
Yeah, or like a bison. Like, so they still exist, but when you think about them, they're like
so. Not a dodo bird, but
yes.
Bison sounds good. But for people who are kind of getting in the business, the idea is you got to be entrepreneurial and by diverse, or you're going to be extinct.
Yeah.
We know a lot of mullet wrapper guys who would write a story and are saying, they want me to do internet stuff, and I'm not doing it. And the bottom line is that those guys are on the outside looking in.
Yeah,
right?
You have to adapt. I mean, that's for certain. You can't say, I don't think any longer you can say, oh, forget it, I'm not doing anything online. I'm not doing any internet videos. I'm not participating in it. Well, I mean, social media, I think you can still maybe get away with not doing. Like, I don't do Facebook, I don't do Instagram, and I do not do Snapchat. The only thing I do is Twitter. And I don't feel like my quote-unquote brand has suffered at all. But I also am ready and willing to do a podcast or to do a video blog or something. Like, there has to be a happy medium, and understand that we are consuming, and we're consuming content differently than we have before.
One more before we go, because it's important from you as a career journalist. Do you feel like you've changed your standards, or have to feel the weight of others lowering their standards because speed in many ways takes precedence over quality?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think it should make us raise our standards, because I think now the consequences for being wrong are much higher.
Are they? I mean, you can correct yourself in a minute.
You can correct yourself, but man, somebody screen grabs something that's wrong, or something you put out there that is unsavory, or the language is inappropriate. I have seen people who have worked in this market where things have gone viral and they do not work again. So in that sense, I think you have to be more careful. And I also think it's become easier to just throw anything against the wall and see if it sticks. And I think if you really are a true champion of good journalism, and if you are a consumer who really wants good, truthful journalism, you have to be more of a watchdog now.
There you have it, Trenny Kusnierek, the poster child for truth, justice, and the American way.
And bison.
And bison and woolly mammoth.
Woolly mammoths, yeah.
So next time we're doing the top stories from 2016
Is that
and
next
looking
week?
ahead for the top of 2017. Yeah, we're going to do next week. We're going to do the week after. We're going to do a whole lot of this. Trenny Kusnierek, thanks a lot. Next up, our top 10 stories of the week, 10 to 1.
Number 10, New Oakland A's president Dave Kaval taking a unique approach to earning the Bay Area's trust, hosting week fan office hours. According to the East Bay Times, Kaval recently held his first office hours at the Oakland Coliseum for more than 100 A's fans who gave their opinions on things which could improve the franchise. Each appointment lasted about 10 minutes, and the inaugural season was meant to last only 2 hours, but Kaval pledged he would stay and talk to everyone who showed up, stretching the session to over 5.5 hours. It was an open session available to anyone, but there will be appointments open to anyone in the future as well. He said it's important to hear from stakeholders. You need to get that feedback. It's big changes or little things like the lack of light bulbs, but they can talk to someone who can get things done and cut through the clutter if he knows about them, said Kaval. And here's my take. The Oakland A's taking advantage of Commissioner Rob Manfred's new year-long deadline and timetable. Stadium development history teaches us deals can only get done with significant deadlines and meaningful relocation alternatives. Look for the Oakland Stadium efforts to realistically intensify. And that's number 10. Number 9. Continuing the saga of rapid growth, more cities now looking to join the ever-growing list of hopeful MLS candidates to land a team in coming years. The USL Tampa Bay Rowdies officially launching a campaign to bring a team to that region. NASL Carolina Railhawks owner and chairman Stephen Malik boldly stated his goal of turning his club into an MLS franchise, and quickly, in the next 12 to 18 months. Both clubs working on plans to build new stadiums and rebrand beyond expanding the stadium in St. Pete from its current capacity of 7,000 to 18,000. Rowdies owner Bill Edwards says that his next steps will be demonstrating to the league that there's enough fan interest and potential corporate sponsorship to support an MLS team. As it currently stands, the MLS has 20 teams, with 4 more joining in 2018 and a possible 4 more beyond that. And here's my take. MLS franchise values continue to skyrocket, and expansion fees will no doubt follow. Successful USL cities like Oklahoma City, Louisville, and others continue to raise their expectations, and that's number 9. Number 8. Under Armour officially became Major League Baseball's new uniform supplier beginning in 2020. The historic moment for the rapidly growing Baltimore-based sportswear company will see Under Armour's logo put on every uniform, the first corporate mark on MLB jerseys. Quote, as we look to grow out being a global brand, there's nothing more iconically American than the sport of baseball. It's an easy step for our company, and it really makes sense for the brand, said Kevin Plank, UA chair and CEO. MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred happy with the new deal as well, acknowledging that how he likes the Under Armour appeal to the young demographic. And here's my take. Under Armour has numerous existing jersey and apparel sponsorship deals, including ones with EPL clubs and elite athletic universities. But the MLB deal marks the first deal with one of the 4 major U.S. sports. And that's number 8. Number 7, University of Louisville could wind up vacating downtown KFC Yum Center and building its own on-campus arena, following remarks from the university AD Tom Jurich. He noted the Cardinals feel, quote, unwanted in the downtown facility. If they don't want us in there, just tell us and we'll leave, he said. Sources close to the deal between UL and the Yum Center say the lease agreement favors the university, which could be the first step in its budding conflict. The arena also dealing with a $690 million tab in outstanding construction bonds and is looking toward the university to help shoulder some of that debt. And here's my take. The arena acted as an economic stable and social hub for downtown Louisville Business District since the opening in 2010. And if UL elects to leave, it could have severe consequences on the city. Could the leverage be for a new economic deal? Or is it really an opportunity for a second arena in the region? And could the NBA follow downtown? We'll just have to see. Number 6, fresh off his 60-point performance against the Indiana Pacers, Warriors guard Klay Thompson offered a new multi-year shoe deal from Chinese shoe brand Anta. If Thompson accepts the deal, it would place him among the highest-earning footwear endorsers in the league. Thompson used to be represented by Nike, but left the preeminent basketball shoe company back in 2014 to sign with Anta. The current deal, in place through 2019-2020, pays him over $3 million annually after base compensation, bonus incentives and sales royalties combined in that number. And if Thompson's new deal is rumored to be up to $9 million a year, it would be tremendous. All performance incentive and sales bonus goals would be met in that case. The deal would make Thompson the highest paid player with a Chinese shoe deal. And here's my take. The Warriors collectively have become the incredibly compelling brand. The new Chase Arena, deals for Steph Curry, the worldwide popularity of Kevin Durant, and now Klay Thompson getting into the act in a big way. The sky is the limit for Joe Lacob and his Warriors. And that's number 6. Number 5, Ohio State has tremendous success on the football field this year, but it also results in successful revenue campaigns for Ohio Stadium. The first beer sales this season totaled $1.1 billion in their first year of alcohol sales, a massive success for the move. Hotly debated topic at the university a year ago, but beer sales at the University of Texas, most comparable to OSU, are not available, though UT recorded $1.1 million in alcohol sales through just 2 home games this year. Texas figures are a bit skewed, however, since UT included wine and other liquors in its offering. Ohio State sold only $8 and $9 beers. But money from Ohio Stadium toward beer sales goes to increased security, including 4 new OSU police officers, and toward an alcohol and substance abuse center. And here's my take. Ohio State, always been one of the top 5 revenue-producing schools in the sports nation. Obviously, this Urban Meyer run will continue and set that standard even higher. Other schools will undoubtedly follow to create revenue opportunities and other best practices. And that's number 5. Number 4, the Bay Area, known as the technology hub of the world, but thanks to the Warriors, it's now becoming known as a basketball media hub of the world as well. According to The Ringer, national NBA writers are now abandoning New York and L.A. and moving to the Bay Area to embed with the Warriors. With multiple all-star players regularly making the national headlines, top columnists with national newspapers drawn to Golden State. This fall, people who cover the Warriors for the Washington Post moved to Oakland and the Oracle Arena as a forward operating base. Warriors Executive Board member Jerry West says the media crush is far larger than the one that congregated around the Lakers in the early 2000s. And here's my take. With the Warriors posed to remain as one of the NBA top teams in the foreseeable future and a new arena planned in San Francisco, this trend will continue to escalate. And that's number 4. Number 3, coming off the team's first championship season in over 100 years, the Cubs are now set to increase ticket prices by as much as 31%. Average ticket prices will rise about 20% this season, ranging from 6% in the upper deck to 31% for infield club box seats. Team executives largely pointing to a massive spike in demand for season tickets as the main reason why ticket prices have increased. The Cubs said that regular season prices during 2016 were high, but resold on StubHub for an average of 96% above their face value, and postseason tickets went 670% above their face value. And here's my take. The Cubs have raised ticket prices following successful seasons over the past few decades, but none of those instances come anywhere close to this year's rise. But after 108 years, I guess management deserves a break for attempting to capitalize and monetize, and that's number 3. Number 2, Lamar Jackson had a successful weekend, and so did the 16,000 young football and dance and cheer enthusiasts who converged on the ESPN Wide World of Sports complex for the 60th annual Pop Warner Super Bowl. The Finland Blue Lions made history as the first ever European nation represented at the Pinnacle Pop Warner event, joining international teams from Mexico, Canada, and the UAE. to make Orlando an annual season highlight. The EAFL Falcons alone boast players from 10 countries and 53 nationalities on their team, which plays exhibitions in Sri Lanka and is considered the Pied Piper of youth football in the Middle East and beyond. The Emirates American Football League in its 5th year, the first youth football team from the Eastern Hemisphere to travel to Pop Warner Super Bowl in 2014, heavily supported by Emirates Airlines. They hope to create their own version of the Pop Warner Super Bowl in international competition, expanding on the tournament they hosted in October with Dusseldorf and adding to a rich stew of major sports events in the Middle East, which I saw firsthand, by the way, on a recent trip to Dubai. Adding youth football to the likes of Formula One, major golf and tennis events, the World Cup, and signature horse and camel races only furthers the interplay between countries that represent the best of us. And here's my take. Adding youth football to the likes of Formula One, major golf and tennis events, the World Cup, and signature horse and camel racing, it only furthers the interplay between countries that represent the best in all of us. And that's number 2. Finally, number 1. The first college bowl games of the season kick off this Saturday, and while we'll have to wait for the results and a whopping 41 games to unfold, the upcoming slate of bowl games hard-pressed to match TV ratings from college football's regular season. Nearly 180 million fans viewed more than 100 billion minutes of college football, 15 million unique devices. And after Louisville quarterback Lamar Jackson won the Heisman on Saturday, there's also sure to be heightened viewing interest in the December 31 Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl in Orlando, pitting the Cardinals against the LSU Tigers. And here's my take. College football more popular than ever, especially when video metrics include all eyeballs, streaming, internet, mobile devices, and the like. Any discussion about having too many bowls is absolutely ridiculous now that the season really starts on December 17. And that's number 1. My list of the top 15 items to watch: marketing, legal, endorsement, business, 15 to 1.
That's our show for today, folks. Subscribe to our iTunes feed. Look for us on Stitcher, Google Play, and Audio Boom. Big week this week, and I'm the sports professor, Rick Horrow. Won't you join us next week when we go Beyond the Sport?